Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Lancast. I am lucky here to have with me today two former state rep candidates. Josh Gerber, who ran as a Libertarian, is now a Republican committee member. And Eric Beezer, who just ran this last cycle. Welcome, guys. And thank you all, you listeners out there. We really appreciate your support. We're not doing this for money. And again, we just want to get information out there and kind of maybe bridge the gap between left and right and just be a counter to LNP, which, you know, as if you've watched this show enough, I'm not a big fan of. I don't think they report good news. Anyway, let's get started. Eric, tell us about your experience. Actually, I want to start with when you first got on the ballot, because I heard your story when you were on that podcast. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the podcast you were on. And you were talking about your experience with how they tried to throw you off the ballot. Can you get into that story a little bit?
Yeah, so the process exists to make sure that people are using legitimate signatures from legitimate people because, like all systems, you put it out there and bad actors will game it. If you saw around that time any of the images of people they caught, obviously fraudulently with the same pen and same handwriting, covering a sheet, you can understand why they would have something like this in place for a chance to look over this and say, wait a minute, this doesn't pass the smell test. So I learned that from Jenna at RCLC when they had a training to let people know who wanted to go to help fill these out, how to make sure you don't get them challenge and toss, because it's a guarantee that your opponent will try to do that. Now, the odd thing is your opponent is obviously the one that would try to do it, but because it's for the primary ballot access, it has to be someone from your own party that does it.
Right.
So Democrats keep a lackey Republican guy, registered Republican, so that Sturla can call on him when he needs to say, can you sign at the bottom of this challenge? We're going to try and throw 300 plus of my constituents' petition signatures in the trash. Pretty much, it's like the beginning of voting. This is how you get a chance to vote someone by them getting on the ballot. So Sturla gets his old chief of staff, who's a lawyer, to serve me with papers on like the 13th hour of the thing. So they give you a week of this, and Tuesday, the last day after you hand them in, when they have the time of the challenge, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm like, no one challenged them with 3 hours left to go of Harrisburg being open. This is kind of a done deal. Let's celebrate. I made it on the ballot. At 2:30, my wife called me from home and said, you're not going to like this. Some guy just dropped off a manila folder. They're challenging your petitions off the ballot here. And I'm like, man, I really should have waited till 5 o'clock to celebrate this. I should know better. But she brought the packet into me, and it's like 50 pages, like any kind of legalese of the whole lawsuit that's pending against me claiming fraudulent signatures, and that they'll prove that they can get me under 300, which would kick me off the ballot.
Gotta love democracy. The party that says democracy is on the ballot, you know, they don't care about throwing out those signatures of actual people, right?
Actually, not just people, they're like his constituents.
Right.
These are like literally all people that live in the 96th district participating in democracy. When I say participating, they're letting me bang on their door at the end of January when it's like this, cold and dark at 5 o'clock.
Right.
Do you really want to hold your door open for somebody right now after work for them to come and pester you with a clipboard and a pen and a paper? Like, I don't know. When people come to my door with those things, they're lucky if I answer to tell them to scram, usually. So it's like, here's people taking their time on a person coming to their door, asking, hey, I would like the opportunity to represent you in November. In order to do that, you have to sign this along with 300 other people. That will get me on the ballot for the primary, and you'll get a chance to. I'm not even asking for your vote. I was like a chance to be on the ballot so that you can have somebody to vote for.
Right.
Because otherwise, it's like the rest of Sturla's 30 years in office, he never really ever had an opponent.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so how many, now you need 300 signatures to get on the ballot, right? As a state rep.
Yeah, well,
yeah, go ahead.
From the 2020 census, as a third-party candidate, we needed 300. I don't know if the census changed where you need more than 300. Did you need more than 300 for
State
this?
rep is still 300.
It's still 300.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I was lucky. They didn't the Democrat and neither the Republican challenged my signatures, but I had like 480 signatures. So they would have had to knock out 180 signatures to even get me off of the ballot at that point. So I was lucky enough to not get challenged. So I can't believe that you weren't. But if you guys remember the Michigan governor race in 2022, was it 2022? The Michigan governor race, they had 3 different Republicans kicked off the ballot. Do you guys remember that?
No.
Yeah, there was 4 Republicans, I believe, running for the governorship in the Republican primary, and 2 or 3 of them got kicked off of the ballot for fraudulent signatures.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, and this happens a lot.
For the parties, it's kind of like, here's the knockout punch we can deliver before this election ever starts. It's over.
Yes.
We will remove access to the ballot to anyone that we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess that saves them a lot of money. So how many signatures did you end up with at the end that were quote unquote valid?
So February 13th, the day they were due, I had God on my side, I think, to allow for this to happen because it rained the night before on Monday night. And if you've ever tried walking around with a clipboard in January rain, it's not easy. Once the thing gets wet, the pen doesn't work anymore. But not to mention, again, I'm asking people after work to, hey, stranger, here I am pestering at your door with a clipboard. Will you sign this paper? And people are like, people don't really know what this process is. Not many of the people who I was interacting with. Now,
some don't even know who their state rep is or what a state rep does.
A lot of people didn't even know that they had a state rep.
Right.
But yeah, it's a tough part of the process to get onto the ballot. And man, if I haven't learned that there are plenty of systems in place to try to deny people access to the ballot. That's both parties do that to not just each other, they do it to their own party for a candidate that they don't want on the ballot.
Right.
Yeah.
So you ended up with, I think,
323.
Wow.
So I went to,
kind of close a bit.
I'm sorry, I went off there. On Monday night, I went to bed after my paper started getting wet with 273. And that rain was forecasted to turn to snow, so much so that they canceled school in Manheim Township on that Tuesday morning. So even though I know you can't even try to turn them in if you don't have 300. So at 273, I always knew on day of I would need a minimum of 27 to try to turn them in. But I was told ahead of time, try to get about 500 because that keeps you from getting scrutinized for them because they will scrutinize a legitimate signature. Yep. It's not like I had 23 fake ones. I had 23 illegible, person that maybe didn't know that they had moved somewhere. I can't tell you how many of them was people just not using their same, my name's BJ, it's really Brenda Jane, but when I signed up to vote, I put Brenda Jane and then I put BJ on the petition and they're like, they'll challenge it over something
there's
like
something else too. You're supposed to write down, your borough or township.
Yeah, not your mailing address. Right.
Right, which is very confusing for people.
Very confusing, almost purposely confusing.
Yeah.
So you're here trying to repeat yourself hundreds of times, be like, don't put your mailing address. You live in this township. Oh, do I really live in this township? Yes, this is the township you live in. Some people don't even know the township or borough that they live in. Everyone is just so consumed with work, their kids,
right?
Just trying to live that, the politicians can just, with all these rules, how hard it is to get on the ballot, they make it so hard for you to be informed and for anyone else but who they want to be on the ballot.
Well, it's also to that thing of, imagine you not being politically involved. You're a registered Republican. You probably go to vote every 2 years or something like that.
Yo.
Now you're at your house on a cold winter night like this, and somebody's coming with a clipboard. Not everybody's welcoming to even hear you out on. They're thinking you're selling some kind of a service that they don't want to hear about. It's not the easiest opening of some people then want to know what kind of platform you're going to go on. And it's I only got so much time. here with each person to try to sell you on, you don't have to vote for me. Just as a Republican, if you want somebody on the ballot, you have to sign someone's petition or there won't be anyone on the ballot.
Well, you had something going for you. You were a registered Republican. When I was doing it, I was a libertarian trying to get mainly Republicans to sign my petition to even let me get on the ballot. I was literally like convincing people. I would say most of my signature conversations were, you don't even have to vote for me. I would just like the opportunity to be on the ballot. Well, I'm a registered Republican. I'm like, that's fine. I was too. I just want a chance to be on the ballot and have, the right and the pleasure to be on the ballot and give other people options. Don't you agree there should be more options? And then by that time, then they're like, yeah, I agree with you.
You were running in a really heavy Republican district?
Very heavy.
So
very
in trying
heavy.
to give people options, maybe as a libertarian going to Democrats who are sick of just only ever having Republican on their ballot might be a little easier sell.
The hostility of I went to Democrats, but they were, because they had candidates, they were extremely hostile to me.
They already had a candidate. Oh, you
Yeah.
said that was Mark Timmons.
Mark Timmons, yeah. So I was against
Okay.
Mark Timmons and Tom Jones.
Okay.
The Democrats in our district are strong. They're hardcore. If you're a Democrat on that district, you're hardcore and you're not ashamed of it.
Okay.
And you just show it. They were probably the most mean to me.
Huh.
Like the Democrats were very mean, very rude, but then the second most who were very mean, very rude were avid, hardcore Trump voters. They were the second meanest. It was very weird. It was very weird. The moderates, I'm a Republican, but I'm not all that active. Those guys were pretty nice to me. But the hardcore Trump people, they were several of them cussed at me. Several of them said I was
just for asking for them to sign your petition as a libertarian.
As a libertarian, yeah.
I've looked at enough of the 203 different districts in Pennsylvania registration numbers. I don't know if any of them have 300 libertarians. It's weird. The disbursement of them though is heck. If some of these things in Philadelphia they have 40,000 Democrats and 3,900 Republicans, or maybe Brian Cutler's district. Some of these are 2-to-1 Republican like that. But man, when you look through them, it's the same number almost on all the 203 of them for liberty. 283 people registered to be libertarian in almost every district across the state.
There's more independents though. There's a lot more registered independents in each district than libertarians.
Sure,
a lot more.
There's almost 10,000 of them in the 96th district.
Right. But yeah, it was really hard because I voted for Trump twice. And so these hardcore Trump voters were the second meanest to me.
Huh.
It was hard. It was hard to go through.
And this is just a petition time.
This
You're
is
not
just
talking app
petition.
post-petition?
This is just petition time.
I can't say I had one person be nasty with me at all.
Oh, I had a lot of people nasty to me. A lot.
I wasn't politicking like it was time to ask for your vote and I was going to canvass your door. I was trying to keep it quick in that I knew if I don't get this, and that was the day of the snow when I go there. So my dad had been helping me. So Super Bowl Sunday was right before that Tuesday they're due. My wife and my dad were with me in Lancaster City the day of the Super Bowl up until kickoff in the dark, knocking on city street doors because I didn't do this with a lot of help. I did most of it myself. And at that point, I'm used to Manheim Township brain in my head because that's where I live.
Right.
But the doors I walk around my neighborhood and Li's neighborhoods. But man, it's one thing to just say I'm going for a walk. It's another thing if it's I need to knock 200 doors in a neighborhood like this, and you do that with purpose, it takes forever.
Sure.
I remember Valerie, after doing it one day, almost as if she needed a ride home. And this is we walk around the school every day. 3 miles, we can do that on a whim. But man, if you're trying to keep on people's sidewalks and not cover their grass and go to knock on a door,
it takes forever.
you gotta cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, I started even just going door to door, for our candidates. I started to take shortcuts.
Right.
I can't do everything by the book. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds like Josh. Maybe the 98th. You just have meaner people there.
Well, no, look. It was 2022, I think. Yeah, it was 2022, and Trump lost 2 years ago. And
Yeah,
I was
it's a different vibe.
It's a very different vibe. COVID was kind of dwindling down.
It was harder to have hope. At
Right.
that point.
Yeah. I voted for Trump the third time. so it's like, politics is funny, and like you and I ran for state house. Like you said, most people don't even realize that you have a state house candidate because everyone is so into this polarizing Democrat versus Republican at the federal level. When if you want to impact your life, you want to impact your family,
State is more important.
it's here.
Even the school board is on a completely local level. As local as you get is how much it influences your life.
Yeah. And we were going to talk about why Manheim Township is tilting left, right?
Yeah,
So that's what we're gonna talk
yeah,
about?
there was a Facebook post, I might pull it up later, by the Manheim Township Democrats about a week ago. And I'll read the actual quote was, while most of Pennsylvania trended right, Manheim Township actually shifted left from 2020. This was despite record GOP registration. So, yeah, it's, how do we address it? That's one of the things we need to work on, I guess, our local committee. But how do you explain those trends otherwise? Is it just the sheer numbers of registered people? It's the gerrymandering.
It's not my district.
So, how long have you guys lived in this area?
This is my 9th year.
11 years.
So I saw a stat back around petition entering time that Lancaster as a whole from 2020 to 22 has swung 18 points to the left, presidential races.
Wow.
That's a lot.
We've talked about this before. The county is only a few elections away from being like what I think a lot of people have told me Lancaster will vote blue when hell freezes over. Is like I've heard several people say that.
As a county.
As a county. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Lancaster County is 2 presidential cycle elections away from being blue. And I say that because like right down the road from your house, going down 30, they're building all these condos. They're building all these super close apartments up against each other that will always favor the Democrats.
Is there any place for an exception to disprove the rule that the high density population areas are always blue?
No.
Not a place.
I don't think there's not a single city.
It's always the way it works with high density population.
So Texas is a good example. Texas is red, always red, but every single metropolitan town is hardcore blue.
And this is something I've wanted to discuss because it's not always been that case. When I lived in New York City 25 years ago, we had Mayor Giuliani. He was a Republican. But now,
right after 9/11, well, during 9/11.
Yeah, but he was there before 9/11.
He was there before, yeah.
So,
but there was a crime wave.
Cities had Republican representation not that long ago.
That's my point. And he did an amazing job cleaning up the city. From when I visited in 96, from when I was living in Connecticut, to the time I moved there in 99, it was like a night and day difference. He cleaned up that city so much in just a couple of years. And maybe people paid attention to that back then, and now I don't know what has happened in the last 20 years. Just I blame a lot of the wokeism is.
Well, there's also this new hive mind that the left has, where people are more voting for safety and security than like individual freedoms. So like during COVID, everyone that bent the knee, they didn't bend the knee for like freedom. They bent the knee for what? Security and safety.
Exactly.
So you have
freedom for security.
Right. And why do you feel like you should give away your freedom for security? Well, because you're living in a metropolitan area with thousands and thousands of people living right up against you. And then, we also live in the society of hyper like everyone insulates themselves now because of social media, because of your phones. it's hard to go into a metropolitan area and not see Ring doorbells everywhere. Right. Ring doorbells are what? A good way for someone to check their door without actually opening their door.
Right.
It's easy.
Yeah, I encountered a lot of those. I don't
know. It's horrible. It's horrible for when you're trying to door knock. But those Ring doorbells is a societal problem because we're all just going into our own bubbles.
Right.
And when you go into your own bubbles, you basically are just like, I want to be safe. I want to be safe. I want to, so you'll give away your freedom to be safe. So all these people who are going to be moving up and down right next to you, down 30.
Oh, yeah.
All those people are going to be living so close together. They're like, we're going to need regulations. We're going to need rules of how we all should live. We're going to have all these things. We're going to have organization because we're all going to be living in a community.
Right.
Everyone that uses the word and the phrase community typically vote what way? Democrat.
Yeah.
And then the Republicans, we're spread across the country. We love our individual freedoms. We would rather protect ourselves with a gun than let ourselves be shot and killed and have the cops show up later.
Interesting.
So
maybe there is something to it, like a formula, like the denser where you live, the more likely people will vote left-leaning. Mm-hmm. And maybe that was always true, but it kind of, 25 years ago, it wasn't true enough in New York City, but it started to go that way, and it's been pushed over the ledge. I don't know.
Have any of you guys met a farmer or someone that lives on several acres of land ever think the world is overpopulated?
No, a farmer wouldn't think that.
Right. I'm from rural Missouri, born and raised. Okay? I have never thought that there's not enough room on this earth for everyone to live. The only people that think that are the people who live right up against each other, and they think, oh my gosh, there's just so much traffic. The line at Chick-fil-A was crazy. Yeah. You think there's too many people here because there's too many people living in one area.
I don't even know if we're at a point yet where you can technologically have people live in all land. All land's not created equal. So there's a reason people congregate in the areas they do.
I'm just saying.
Cities are formed geographically because they had access to rivers and waters.
Used to be.
You think we can go into the middle of Podunk, Iowa, and form a large city in Nowheresville?
I'm not saying that is a solution. I'm saying
you do it though? Is it a constraint? So people need water and sewer first off.
So the United Arab Emirates are embarking on a project called the Mile, and it's like 15 miles of a narrow town that's all enclosed, and you're within everything you would need to live in 15 minutes. They're building it in the middle of a desert. Okay. So the answer to your question is yes.
You can do it.
But I wasn't saying that cities aren't necessarily shouldn't exist. What I'm saying is that there is a certain kind of hive mind when a bunch of human beings live together. That's what I'm saying.
Right. But it's more to the point of the red and blue thing. And man, if it just doesn't feel like none of these definitions fit the same way they did.
Right.
I think the change is this election. I think that there is a lot of... So what happened going into 2020 and COVID happened in 2024, I think if you attended one of our committee meetings where it seemed as if 40 Republican committee people were having a little bit of a, what does it mean to be a Republican moment?
Right.
Right?
We've had this very conversation several times on the podcast. What does it mean to be a Republican, and how many different kind of Republicans are there? It's like a really valid question. What are we?
The podcast, right?
Yeah, that's why we started the podcast.
We want to expunge the neocons,
yes.
and
because the neocons and neoliberals are the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're the same. They're the uniparty.
Right.
Yeah.
The establishment.
Yeah. Well, the uniparty establishment. Yeah.
Right. So now you had some interesting. Do you want to talk about the election day stuff you were telling me about?
Yeah, if you like, I had fun with it.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to start? Day of election?
Yeah, or we could. Either that or kind of your relationship with LNP, because I love to bash on LNP and.
You want? Maybe we should start from the beginning. I was a paper boy for LMP
Okay.
30 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, blizzard of 94, I delivered in 3 feet of snow for LMP.
I wasn't even born yet.
But this experience made me regret ever participating in that a little bit. Because, man, if I didn't see a sign, like, I didn't go into this a real big, it's all fake news person.
Right.
Partly because I just never paid that much attention to the media in the first place. So it wasn't like I saw a lot of it to have to be repelled by its fakeness. I just kind of knew to steer clear of it. You know what I mean?
From here, word of mouth.
What is the quote of either you read the news, you're misinformed, or you don't, and you're uninformed? And I guess that I would have erred on the side of being uninformed rather than misinformed.
Interesting.
Kind of going into this. But
sure.
I was a paper boy for them, and they would do these contests each year where the paper boys could come into the Steinman building and you could call people and sell newspaper subscriptions. Hi, I'm your paper boy. I'm trying to win a trip to Walt Disney World. I was wondering if maybe you would sign up for the Lancaster New Era. And I wanted all 3 years I was a paper boy. I went to Disney World that LNP would send me down there. It was always around Martin Luther King Day because one of the times was one of the snow blizzards, and I got trapped down there for like a week because they closed Harrisburg, the whole airport around here, for like a week around a blizzard. I think that was 96 blizzard. I think I was first a paper boy in 94, but I think when I got trapped there was 96. So I always had a soft spot for LNP. It was my first job.
Okay.
As a paper boy, you know what I mean? And then, man, my first interaction with them in this was I handed in my petition signatures on that snowy Harrisburg Tuesday where they closed most things. Manheim Township School was closed. Harrisburg was like, this is enough snow coming off that rain. Stuff's just closed. But the dates on this whole thing, they don't want to have to get judges involved in changing the legal thing of, they're like, the place where you hand petitions in will be open until 5, like we always said it was. That deadline stands. So after I got 50 signatures Tuesday morning in the snow, I went up and dropped them off there at 5 o'clock. And I'm in the parking garage, exhausted. If you recall, I said Super Bowl Sunday when the kickoff happened, I'm still knocking doors asking for signatures.
That's dedication.
Monday night in the rain, and then Tuesday the day through the snow, we're trying to get 300 and some padding, thinking that maybe they'll challenge them and stuff. Where was that? Oh, so I didn't think it the whole way through. They have you fill out so many forms, as you can recall. I probably, if I would have thought going into this, I would have like gotten a Google Voice phone number to give them or something like that. But I gave them my phone number when I submitted my petitions, and I'm in the parking garage pulling out to come home. I am literally exhausted from everything I've done. And it's a number I don't recognize. It just like comes up in my thing. I'm literally in the parking garage. Just like answer it. Hello? It's LNP calling. Starting to ask me questions right away. And I'm like, I'm really tired and I'm driving. Can I get back to you? And it's like, there's this urgency at 5 o'clock. Like, they didn't know I existed a minute earlier, but man, I turned them in.
That's
and now I have a deadline for a story. I need your comment. So part of what's interesting is they like to pressure you like this so they can turn around, drop a story and say, Eric Beezer refused to comment.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, obviously, because look at my wife. I've dragged her through this stuff. Yeah, I'm like, my feet are soaking wet. I'm promised her that we'll go get dinner now that it's 5 o'clock. And like, I got to pay attention. I'm leaving a parking garage in Harrisburg. So I'm an honest person. I answer honestly. Like, I'm tired and I'm driving. I'll get back to you soon. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that began their whole, man, if I'm like, LNP really likes to do the business against a Republican candidate to figure out how can we use our
platform,
our channel here to badmouth a unknown Republican.
Yeah, I know that's one of their trademark things. Like, so-and-so could not be reached for comment. And it's like, well, you called them at midnight, right, a minute before the deadline, you know.
Give them credit to at least do that the right way, because I experienced what it's like to see a journalist lie about that as well.
Right. Yeah.
Because look, their story and their narrative that they're printing out there, because let's be honest, a lot of the media is pretty leftist around here.
Exactly. That's my whole point. They're not reporting news. They're reporting opinions and they're doing activism on.
They're narrating stories, though.
Right.
They are narrating a story, and I mean, I did not know to defend myself against it going into this, and it's like all things I kind of learned by doing in this. So probably the first couple of times when they looked to print my name in there, it probably said I couldn't be reached for comment, because after the first time for there, I'm like, well, that was kind of messed up. Like, the news guy called me at 5 p.m. and it's like, I would think if he was starting a relationship with me over it, he would have like been a little more kind about it, you know? And it was like intentionally to be able to print the story that I had no comment over it. It's like, okay, what dire need does LNP have for these digital prints to have this story written at 5:30 versus let me eat dinner with my wife and then I'll get back to you at 6:30 or 7?
Yep.
Well, they did something like that when I was the Libertarian candidate, because Tom wasn't like being available to them, kind of like how you're saying, but I think he actually did it for a reason. He was just like, I have no reason to. He had
a registration advantage. He had nothing to gain. He could only lose by saying things in the news.
Right. So like they printed, I think I was in LNP 3 times. I even did that wonky WGAL 3-minute debate with Timmons.
Yeah, I watched that.
That was there. I did another debate with League of Women Voters, and this is the thing. The League of Women's Voters, they had they scheduled it to be in the East Donegal building, municipal building, where Tom Jones was the supervisor of East Donegal. They then had a little Tom Jones's nameplate at the League of Women Voters debate there with the chair empty. They had me and then Timmons. No, Timmons then me. You know, and the LNP lady came in, snapped a picture of the empty chair next to Mark and me, and then she sat in the back and wrote her notes. Like the first sentence of her article about the debate was like, it was a full East Donegal municipal building with one vacant chair in the front. Tom Jones did not show up or something like that. And it was just, LNP was just doing to be like, oh, Tom Jones doesn't want to speak to his voters.
Right.
But
they can only try so hard to dog him where he lives there, because what I found is a lot of times they have fallen so far off the map. They don't have a lot of Republican readership left. Yeah. I don't know what they boast, these big numbers of readership. I don't think LNP has a ton of reach.
It's Lancaster Online. The newspaper has nothing. It's the Lancaster Online where a lot of old Republicans still find it credible. Yes. Yes, my father-in-law is one of them. Okay. He thinks WGAL, Lancaster Online are the greatest things in the world because he's a homebot. He's a Lancaster homie, you know. He was born here, raised here. He loves Lancaster, so nothing possibly could be bad about something that has the word Lancaster in it. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's just
he knows they have a leftward bent at LNP.
He doesn't care.
Okay.
He doesn't even. He is a moderate. But he doesn't care because it says Lancaster on it. He has like severe pride in it because he's born and raised here. It's annoying. So like even with like he listens to Lester Holt every night. He records Lester Holt every night. He records Lester Holt and David Muir every night. Watches them both. Because that's like...
He likes his legacy media.
It's his legacy media. He's in his mid-50s. It's just... It's so hard, too, because he thinks it's gospel, and I've even shown him when it's not gospel. It's all lies. And he's just like... He still watches it.
So, we completely cut the cable from all legacy. I've never been a big TV guy, TV news at first, but CNN on my TV counting up the COVID death toll. I was like, I'm sorry, Val, I am canceling this altogether. She's like, how will I get the news then? I was like, that ain't it. You had to find something other than that is not it.
Well, there's a lot of speculation that this last election, there was a referendum on legacy media. Maybe it's on its way out. People are picking up on alternative news podcasts like ours.
MSNBC at their key demo last week only had 30-some thousand.
Yeah, do you guys know of any? Do you know of any people our age or younger that watch network
No.
news or anything. Like
No.
LNP, I don't
They
even know
shouldn't.
how they would get access to that, because if they're not on Facebook, you know what I mean? It's like
Right.
you almost have to go out searching for LNP's thing if you want to see it. And they put a lot of their stuff behind a paywall
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Oh,
it's,
yeah, absolutely.
It's Lancaster Online is why the newspaper has relevancy. It's not the paper.
Yeah, they've definitely lost a lot
yeah.
of print circulation.
Yeah, and I work with Amish and Mennonites. I will say that the Amish,
They read the paper?
they still read the paper.
Okay, I'd buy into that.
Yeah, it's not good.
There you go. But
It's not
people
good.
in the 19th century and older type people are still with an
Uh-huh.
older
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I encountered mostly people even more our age who that they heard about what I was doing for the first time, that I'm like, how did you not know? How did I not tell you? How did you not know? Well, I've been busy. How did you not see any news? Like, I don't look at LNP, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't. What do you take me for? So I think that while they made it obvious, as he said as much of like, what can I do to hurt your candidacy, basically. Like I invited him after all that tag of, at first, I'm on the road. Well, I'm busy doing stuff, so when you give me this, I don't even see my phone that you've tried to contact me about it until I missed your deadline, just so you can print your story that you reached out for contact and I didn't. It was like I said, I had a reporter lie about that. And man, if that didn't waste a whole day of my life during the election of like, dude, I got every evidence of you lying about this. I wasted 2 hours at my cell phone carrier getting printouts of my phone thing, because my dad called me on a Saturday morning after Sturla dropped out the race, and the local media had reported on it night of, day after, and then like statewide politics places are picking it up Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's how a lot of news syndicates through, like, don't even as much as just post someone else's story kind of with attributed to the local writer.
Right.
But a lot of them are kind of just reposting someone else's news thing. They're not rewriting it in Harrisburg.
Exactly.
So my dad called me all livid about this, something he read on the internet Saturday morning, and it was like a Nikki Puff piece from some far left news media thing. And I'm like reading through it, laughing at the things that my dad had got so livid about what they were saying in there. And so I got down to like the next to last paragraph, and like at first I'm giving the writer credit in that you're the first one I saw use appropriate terminology about what my candidacy has to do with marijuana. Right? Like he was using appropriate terminology. He was, which is weird because I never talked to the guy, right?
They're calling you the pro pot candidate.
Yeah, the pro pot. So I got down to the part where he wrote that about me, and then it was like the end of his paragraph was that he reached out for me for comment and I didn't say something. You know, like he made it sound like he made an attempt to ask me for a comment, and that's where I reached out to him and I was like, how did you try? Because when LNP wanted to, they called me at the same time I gave my number to the state and walked out to the parking garage. I got LNP calling me.
Right.
It's public information. Like a 34-year incumbent dropping out of Harrisburg is the biggest news going on if that's your beat. You know, like what was the guy supposed to be spending all his time on anywhere? Pennsylvania has like a dozen competitive state house races. So if that's what you cover, if the one where the longest tenured guy drops out at the last possible second, that's somewhat of a story. But they were already just like fluffing Nikki up of like, it was a piece to like sell someone on why they would vote for Nikki and then still kind of like not give me much leeway on there. But when the guy said he tried to contact me, I reached out to him and said, how did you try to get a hold of me? And he lied about the whole thing, about how he called my business store. He takes a screenshot of what looked like his cell phone saying that he dialed my store. And I'm looking at my phone at my store. I'm like, there's 3 missed calls from yesterday and none from your number. Like, you also claim you left a message about this. That would be in my voice mailbox. So it's like, what if you read their mission statement about how it's to educate the public and the integrity in their policies and stuff, it's like, if you allow your journalists to do that kind of stuff, narrating, you're not reporting the news, you're like narrating stories about the news. It's like, how can you expect people to trust you about anything else from there? If something so simple as the way you word, did you reach out for me for contact and I didn't? Like, no, either you're lazy or you never want to give me a chance. Most news outlets didn't want to give me to get a chance to comment on a situation. LNP didn't really They didn't print but 2 little lines of a whole thing that I took a lot of thought into. How should I respond to Sturla dropping out of the race? I mean, it's pretty big. It's
right.
So you definitely fought the LNP, but why did it look like from the outside? Why did it look like the Republicans at large in your district didn't back you? Why did it look like...
It looked like that because they never really did back me.
Right. So if we live in this hyper-polarized world, if there's a Republican on the ballot and there's a shot in the dark and you're running down ballot from Donald J. Trump, who has RFK on his side, and Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, all these huge names, and you're down ballot of that guy, how in the world and why in the world wouldn't Republicans in your district, Republicans that live near you, why was it so hard to get Republicans to back you?
Well, you're asking the right question, that's for sure. And for context, this is at a time when the Pennsylvania State House has a 1-seat Democrat majority.
Right.
So you're talking about, if you've ever heard the local party talk about how they're the envy of the state. Well, they used to send one Democrat for 30 years in Sturla up there with a county full of Republican people. Gerrymandering in 2020 pulled 2 Democrat seats out of the city. So now, in a Lancaster County for 30 years, they had the Republican majority. And first election afterwards, you lose a 1 seat. You would think that it means all the more. Even if you're like, we don't like this candidate that much. But man, shouldn't we try to gain the majority?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would have thought.
Yeah. So why didn't they help you? I wanted to help you. I also felt like every time I tried to help you, the schedules weren't going to work out for us. Danny helped you probably more than anyone. But other than Danny, and me trying to help in my committee, trying to get people to help you, because our schedules weren't working, I find it hard to believe.
So I'm going to make an important distinction, and this applies to any time you talk politics like that, right? Because people will hear these things and then attach it to themselves. The party is not the people, right?
Oh, yeah, I know that.
So, just because the party didn't pitch in, and Danny definitely pitched in, there was certainly plenty of Republicans eager as all heck to kind of help anyone, like how you'd say.
Right.
You would just think that people would be like,
right.
Good, we have someone rather than no one.
Yes,
no one is how I said you can do a knockout punch beforehand to get someone off the ballot. Well, the inverse of that is sitting here doing nothing and not even fielding the candidate, and you're just automatically giving them that seat, which happens a lot in Pennsylvania. Like I said, there's only a dozen semi-competitive races out of 203 seats in the first place. So you can understand why they don't expend a ton of resources. But here's an odd one, right? Harrisburg, Pennsylvania Republican Party spent $100,000 on the last 7 days of Lancaster State Rep Brian Cutler's primary race.
No.
So they spent 6 figures
I know this.
in a primary race.
Oh. And he gave the gavel of the assembly to a Democrat. He willingly gave the gavel of the assembly to a Democrat.
Back up even from any other thing of a party expending resources to the tune of 6 figures in a primary race.
Yeah.
You would hope that at least it would be the opposite of kind of what we're getting at here. That someone had infected the party, and man, if they got to save us from this anti-Republican. Dave Nisley was a guy that most people were happy to vote for. He came pretty close to Brian Cutler. It wasn't like the constituents there were like, please send money, save us from this guy that's trying to be on the ballot. This is crazy.
Right. And Brian Cutler was doing these town halls, and he was kicking his own constituents out because they were asking him valid questions about his leadership and about how he was basically playing ball with the Democrats when he didn't have to. Which, I mean, I guess that's the polarization I'm always fighting against. But, in a state like Pennsylvania, when you have a crazy governor during COVID who was just continuously taking emergency actions, basically putting caution tape around playgrounds, and your kids couldn't go outside and play, keeping schools locked down, doing the stupid hybriding,
one of the strictest in the country.
masking up kids, You know, all this stuff he did. Like, you're the Speaker of the House, and like, you're playing ball with the Democrats during that time. Like, he should have been primaried. Sorry, I mean, I probably shouldn't say that, but Cutler should have absolutely been primaried. And Nisley, you know, I believe is a straight up guy.
I think competition always makes it better for everybody.
Right.
Absolutely.
It would make a stronger candidate of whoever prevails between the 2 or 3. I think we get kind of gypped in Pennsylvania in that we spend a lot of money on all this stuff, and we're in a situation because of gerrymandering where candidates pick their voters far more than your little. If all you do is get your I voted sticker on election day, I don't want to dissuade anybody from voting. More people should vote. But, like, you're not making a big dent in what's going on in a lot of those places. Like, in the 96th district, I think that so Nikki was on the ballot for not even 3 months in their little swap thing they did. She was able to get over 21,000 people to vote for her. If you went to 21,000 Nikki voters, what's today, December 12th, election was November 5th, so like 5 weeks. 5 weeks in a day, right? Mm-hmm. If you go to the 21,000 plus people that voted for Nikki and you ask them, who did you vote for your state representative again?
Oh, I don't know.
How many of those 21,000 people could tell you they voted for Nikki Rivera?
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I'd like you guys to take a guess. 21,000. She got over 21,000 people to vote for her.
I think
if you got to get all of them in a room and one at a time ask them, who did you vote for your state representative? Because you said before, a lot of people don't really even have a state representative.
I think 20%.
About 20% of people know they voted for her?
I say 20% because on either party, you have about 20% who are hardcore on the Republicans, 20% that are hardcore on the Democrats. And those are hardcore people. Mm-hmm. That's their base. That's what primaries are all about, is like getting your base. You know, that's why typically in a primary, whoever is the furthest right and whoever is the furthest left wins.
These people vote enthusiastically for the party, but do they know the people's names any better than the people that don't care?
No, they don't. What I mean? And you were bringing up how much money we spend and just how much of an impact our votes are. If we can we swing over to Aument for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the key things that Aument was trying to push before, if you guys don't know, Aument is going to be working for McCormick now, Senator McCormick. He's going to be like the chief advisor for the state, right? The director
for McCormick.
For McCormick, yeah, yeah. So he's going to be bowing out as our senator, the 36th district state senator.
He's all of our senators.
He's all of our senators. Yes. So he's actually childhood friends of Brian Cutler. First of all, we talked about Brian Cutler already, and then also Aument was trying really hard last year to create a primary runoff in PA. He was really pushing hard on it. He wanted it to be where, not in the general, but in the primaries, that you have to have over 50% of the vote. So basically, if you have 3 people running in a primary, if one person didn't get 50%, then it'd go to a runoff. It'd go to a runoff. So basically cementing the incumbent every time. Basically. Okay? Because if you have a grassroots guy, a guy that wants to throw his name in, and the incumbent, and it's like
33, 33.
Well,
even.
Don't even say that. Be like 45 and then fill in the other 2. If it's like that, it gives the incumbent an advantage on the second vote because he's going to have the money, he's going to have the manpower, and he's going to have and the name recognition too. So it's basically just making it even harder to knock off an incumbent. So, like, we actually had a town hall. We actually, me, Danny, some libertarians, we got a town hall last year for him to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then, he got pretty quiet about it after he saw that people didn't want it. But now he was talking about trying to take kids' cell phones away in school. Like, he got on Fox News, national Fox News, talking about his bill in Pennsylvania that would take kids' phones away in public schools, completely ignoring that the phones aren't the problem. It's the curriculum and it's the way you teach kids is outdated and it doesn't work anymore.
Kids looking at their phones is a problem.
Is it so? That's
He's not solving it maybe the right way.
That's the responsibility of the parent, and it's all. You're also creating a parental rights issue where there is more evidence based accusations of child abuse from teachers to students more now between 2010 and now than ever before. Why is that? Because kids have smartphones, kids have cell phones. They can document the abuse. They actually have someone safe to talk to, not a counselor that works for the same place that the other person abused you from, but your parents. You have a one-on-one communication with your parents. And for me, if my kids were going to public school, I would make sure they had a cell phone because I want to be able to contact them. I want them to be able to contact me at all times.
It's a great reason for them to have access to it.
Yes, absolutely. It also creates transparency. It creates like a sense of if you do something to the student, if you abuse a student, they have a cell phone, they can report you right away and they can have evidence. So just taking away the parental rights for one, and you're kind of removing that security that a kid could have too. I don't think for one it's the role of the government, and I don't think it's very conservative either.
Should be a teacher role at the classroom level. Like, hey.
Even that, yeah. But then only hold it for the end of the hour and give it back.
Right.
So you kind of fall into a point where I start asking that question and you point something out. When do we solve a problem by having the government ban it and make it go away? When does that work?
Never. It's never worked.
It's never worked.
Now we're getting to kind of libertarian philosophy debate. What is the role of government? When is it government
exactly
overreach?
What the Constitution says. It's to protect our borders, deal with shipping and commerce, and it's to secure our rights that are enshrined in our Constitution from the government taking it from us. That's the only thing the government is supposed to do. And a few weeks ago, Aument, I'm gonna keep going. Aument posted this post on Facebook where he was talking about Lititz. It was a Lititz business. Is it Lititz Rock or something like that? Some Lititz business that he was propping that he brought funds for this business.
Okay, Rock Lititz there.
Yes. He was talking about how it was a public-private partnership.
Oh yeah.
And public-private partnership is fascism. It's literally the definition of fascism. It's when public and private come together and they do regulation and they do stuff for businesses. That is not conservative at all. So, and I say all this because we actually have a chance, Lancaster County has a chance to hopefully have a special election and vote in a real conservative or a real even better, a real America First senator for the first time probably in a long time. And I hope anyone that's listening, I hope I hope we all think about who we're going to have in the special election, who we can vote for, and I hope that there's a lot of options because
I want to touch on one thing, kind of wrapping something in with how LNP narrates these stories rather than reporting the news. So
yeah, that's huge.
So as you were saying about the money they bring home for Rock Lititz,
he was boasting about bringing home for Rock Lititz, and
they brought a lot of investment. Look, this is like every issue. There are pros to the economic activity that comes afterwards. Yeah. Rock Lititz has brought a lot of jobs and money to the area, so they have good selling points to it. But as far as LNP goes with telling the story, if really they follow their own mission statement, I'm not sure if you were able to Google the headlines they used for when Pennsylvania taxpayers invested $5 million into Rock Lititz educational facility. Right. So within 12 months, Rock Lititz bought a $5 million plot of land catty corner to their high sports complex. Mm-hmm. So really, if you're an accountant, you could say, couldn't we also say that the Pennsylvania taxpayers graciously spent $5 million buying high for Rock Lititz? Yeah. Rather than saying that the grant paid for the educational thing. it's kind of all the same, though, isn't it? At the end, how do you really differentiate one from the other?
Well, you don't. It's like when people are saying that Iran had all this money to give money to Hezbollah and Hamas. They're not literally saying that those billions of dollars that Biden gave is the reason why the terrorists have the money. They're saying if we're giving Iran billions of dollars to not have nuclear weapons, that means that Iran can spend billions of more dollars over here. It's not exactly like that's what the money's for, but they're able to use that money there and then funnel this money over here. So yeah, I definitely see your point. It's just I just don't understand how any conservative Republican politician can say the words public-private partnership in a good light, considering that's not conservative or Republican at all. But it just goes over everyone's head because no one really understands what our government's supposed to do and what our government's not supposed to do. We're supposed to have laissez-faire government where you let the free market reign.
You mean we don't need a Department of Education?
We don't. We talked about this.
As Elon Musk has started pointing out, is if you'd like to know where your money goes, good luck. The government doesn't know where it goes.
Pentagon hasn't passed an audit in 7 years.
Of course not. Yeah, they're like the mafia with what they can get away with. Mm-hmm. Is it a real audit? I mean, what are the consequences? Nothing. They just get a slap on the wrist. Ooh, they failed another audit.
So what do you think about Aument? You've actually had more you've had more conversations with Aument than I have. I've only had a handful.
I mean, he's a friendly guy and he's a good talker. I met with him about the Defend the Guard bill, and he gave me some good kind of inside information about why it was stalling. I think it was. Anyway, it was like the chief of staff of one of the other senators had a problem with the bill and was kind of like a neocon, and he was stalling it. That's kind of the takeaway I had from the conversation. It was someone else who was on the committee that handles the funds that get allocated to the National Guard. So, but then he also promised we would have a hearing on it, and then I think he was just talking out of his ass. We never had a hearing about the Defend the Guard bill. So I think he's making false promises.
Right.
Wow, when has a politician ever done that?
Yeah.
So, is that a big? It's a criticism, but it's like he's just doing what every politician does.
Right.
I actually saw him, I think, try to introduce a bill that would help shine some light on who actually does own LNP and where do they get their funding.
WIP. Or not WIP, it's WITF.
It's like some percentage amalgamation. When Steinman donated, it is a very strange ownership structure of that. Yeah. And it's not like it's wholly owned by WITF. It's a weird thing.
They had the broadcasting rights, I think, or something like that.
WITF would have already had that with what they do, I'd imagine.
No, that happened like when they gave it away, they literally gave it to WITF, which is PBS. From what I remember reading.
Wholly owned. I think it's weird. I think
it was given. It wasn't even sold. It was given away.
Yeah, I don't understand the structure of the company either. But bottom line, it went into the hands of a more powerful entity.
Government.
Yeah, exactly.
Government institution.
What matters in all this is following the money. And as you kind of go back, none of us are here beating on LNP just for the sake of beating on LNP. Right. I would like nothing more than to have two good news outlets. When I delivered the paper, there was two different morning and evening paper from LNP, and you kind of knew going into it that you're going to see either side of a story. Right. You can kind of pick.
Was that back when they had the Intelligencer and the New Era? It was
correct.
Two different papers.
Cool.
Yeah. We used to have two different papers.
But to me, it kind of matters because where do they get money? So in Pennsylvania, one big source of revenue for these places that still print the news is the notices.
Yep.
And that was what Aument. So it's like, I'd like to give politicians credit. If there's anything, I think people make it really easy to bash on politicians. And and just as a state representative, the idea of representing 65,000 people, it's like there's no way you're not going to piss off a lot of people here. Yeah. And if you ever read reviews of places, well, the people you do right by aren't always the first ones to leave you a review. A lot of times it's the person complaining. So I think everybody could kind of pile on politicians. I try to see, what are they doing that's right? What can I say that I'd want to work with them for or to further something that they seem to get behind? And when he had the one about, it was like tying together, putting it more public information as to basically what kind of funds LMP was a bill that he would have let you get a little more transparency on just how much money, state money, taxpayer money, goes to fund them, because they sell some. I mean, the paper's not cheap anymore. If you wanted to buy it, it's like $250 a day or something.
Well, I'll give him credit. When he fessed up to that, he didn't do a very good job during COVID. He was at a town hall and several people questioned him because he was in the leadership role, advising Wolf. I don't know if you guys knew that. During COVID, he was on the COVID board. He was on the COVID committee. Mm-hmm. And, so a lot of people were grilling him. And he's like, I admit I didn't do nearly a good enough job as I should have. So, I give him credit for that.
Yeah, I think I remember saying that.
I give him credit for actually talking about school choice. But albeit it's only school choice for people in underprivileged inner city schools to be able to go to a suburb school. It's a good start. So I give him credit, for that. But at some point he was there for 14 years. To me, there should always be a changing of the guard, like George Washington said. There should always be a changing of the guard.
One of the things Beezer ran on, right? Term limits.
Yeah. And if I was going to, on conversely, say one reason I wasn't sad to hear he was going was he's been around a while. Mm-hmm. So just the idea of fresh blood in these seats. Like all things, you'll hear a tenured politician tell you why it's better for us to have all these guys in there forever. And I mean, I can understand sometimes some of the points they make, but it's the system was never intended to have people be there for, Biden is, as you said, the election was kind of a turn the page on some things. Yeah. I don't know that we're going to have a ton of 50-year career politicians moving forward. It's a tough thing it's going to be a tough thing moving forward. I mean, that was partly why I thought maybe I could actually upset Sturla in a district that's so heavily tilted towards Democrat registrations man, if that message didn't resonate with people, when I was just working as a regular citizen, calling legislators, and a lot of times when I would stump a legislator, they would be like, well, where do you live? Shouldn't you call your... I was like, I've tried that. They're a joke. They're not doing anything there to help. So you guys all have the job just the same just because I don't live in your district. It's not like they segregate taxpayer money that pays your salary. You represent all of us just the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about any of your interactions with Sturla, maybe on election day? Or is that, or is he going to come after you?
Yeah, so on election day, I had always planned to go work the poll at the 9-4. And for people that don't know what their polling station is, the 9-4 is Franklin and Marshall College. And my reasoning for that is I was trying to think of which poll I could have the most impact at. And as a committee person, we have a dual voting location out by my house where I had good coverage. So my fellow committee people said, we have our poll covered for election day. Feel free to go somewhere in the city where they don't have anyone to work most of these polls. So I never really let anybody on to it because I didn't want anyone to try to counter what I was doing. And if you ever worked a poll on election day, there's usually prime real estate. So some people will even go the night before and set their table and their tent up so that they're making sure that when people come to the door, they have that spot that's 10 feet away from the door, but everybody kind of has to walk past them. Well, my wife got in a car accident 4 weeks before the election. She's still kind of going on with a concussion. And I had told her I would like to get to F&M to set up at 6:30, thinking that there would be other people setting up, and I wanted a good spot. Well, we were moving slow on day of, and we didn't show up to F&M until 7:30, so people had already been voting for a little bit, and I was worried I wouldn't get a good spot. Well, because there's so many Democrats Democrat registered voters at that polling location and hardly any Republicans. It's like an abandoned post in a way, where Democrats are used to kind of having the entire place as their real estate with no Republicans working the poll there at all. So I'm running up from where I parked with my table in hand, and the first thing I see was, if you remember the Obama era famous sign that said hope, and it was like black, red, and blue, I think, image of his face, it said hope.
Yeah. So
this guy was there with this big 4-foot sign that had Kamala Harris's face on it, and it said fake. And I'm like, well, I guess there's some other I guess there's some other Republican here. And so it's big. You're not missing this thing. So much so where the trash guys that were driving down the street that morning saw the sign and wanted to come up and pose for pictures. If you remember the whole garbage men thing that had been going on for that week. So I'm walking up here sweating, thinking, man, I'm late at 7:30. I'm not going to have anywhere good with my table. And the first thing I see is garbage guys posing with the big fake sign. I'm like, oh, all right, I guess this is friendly territory here. This might actually be fun. Well, F&M at that location, there's 2 doors next to each other. One has like little 3-step up, and the other one has like a ramp for handicap access. And in between those 2 doors, there's like a singular handrail in between those. And there was no one 10 feet away from the door right there. So as soon as I get there at 7:30, I put my table, like, this is great. Every voter that will come by to vote here will have to walk right past where I'm at here. Well, the Democrats were already ticked off about the guy that had that sign there. So they were already like in this uncomfortable state where like they had kind of moved out into the grass a little bit. And then I show up. So there's a guy with his signs and me, the candidate, electioneering, introduce myself to voters, asking them if they would trust me with their vote because I'm trying to end marijuana prohibition in Pennsylvania. And they're like, oh wow, that's different coming from a Republican. I'm like, yeah, I mean that's why I'm here. That's why you get a chance to help me on the ballot. You can vote for me. And it really resonated with Democrat registered college age kids. I mean, that was kind of my plan, right?
Right.
20-somethings coming from college. What can I get those registered Democrats to actually vote for Republican election day? My issue. I can genuinely sell you in 20, 30 seconds of why I'm here, what this job entails. You'll have an opportunity with your vote to end marijuana prohibition. And it worked really well. I think I ran ahead of Trump like 100 points at that polling station.
Impressive.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, it really ticked them off because these are like their voters that I am getting to. They're shaking my hand, thanking me, giving me fist bumps as they go into the polling station. I'm like, cool.
Well done.
I got 12 hours of this to go. Let's see how many people I can get to help the cause here. Well, they called in Mike Sturla, I guess, at 9:30, thinking one more time that he could like chase me off or something. I'm like,
damage control.
yeah. I don't know what in his head he's thinking he's going to do to me, distract me. I don't know. At the little debate that they did, he sat 3 feet in front of me at the debate thing the whole time looking at me. It was kind of strange, but
trying to intimidate you.
Thinking he was going to intimidate me. I'm like, you're not the smartest guy I came across. In our run-ins, whatever let you think that what you say or do is going to intimidate me away from what I'm doing here. So at that point, they called in the ACLU to try to lie and say that I was interfering with voters that morning. So Sturla came and he scuffled with me. The news was all there, trying to make a story of it. And I was like, well, this is wasting my time. You actually are succeeding in drawing me away from the door. I'm going to get back to doing what I am here to do. I'm here to electioneer and ask people to vote for me. Well, he actually kind of assaulted me during the whole thing. So I approached him with my camera and my phone to ask him a tough question that I know that he didn't want to answer publicly. And after I got it out, he lost his cool. And he tried to grab my arm to grab my phone away from me. And LNP News, Jackson White is standing 20 feet away from me.
That's not like, a story or nothing.
Yeah, I'm like, Jackson, did you just see my sitting representative? Like, he assaulted me. I don't know what other definition you use. Because imagine if I grabbed Mike Sturla by the arm to try to take his
that would be a story, right?
I'd still be sitting in jail today, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, they're very selective about their stories. Like last time Rachel told us, like she was there while the pastor was giving a presentation about her Christian nationalism, and they recognized her like she could give her side of the story, but they weren't interested in that. It's a narrative, like you said.
Yeah. So throughout the day, they sent Sturla. They brought in the ACLU saying that somebody was interfering. But every time that an official would have to come to me with an accuser, the accuser would turn around and be like, no, he wasn't doing that. And then I'm like, okay. So part of what they were doing was, I mentioned the guy with the sign there.
Yeah.
Well, he's one of those guys that knows all the rules. Right? You ever come across one of the people that know
All them guys.
Yeah, they're the best guys.
Right.
So, and what's good in knowing the rules is when other people don't know exactly what they are. Like, I tried my best to understand, stay 10 feet away from the door, like the simple rules on election day. But he seems to have the book and he studied it. So, like, he felt confident in everything he was doing. He would argue with other people when they tried to tell him he couldn't do this. That would, like, embolden him to be like, the heck if I can't. I know the rules. I can definitely do this. So, partly what I think they were doing is because he was, like, convicted. He had conviction in what he was saying. He was being loud. They were making it sound like I was doing something to voters, and, like, the people would use him being loud there as a means to, like, bring in, they called the constable. At one point, they called in the constable to say that I was intimidating voters, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Well, here's the funny thing. So, Democrats had these guys at the polls. I saw the same Democrat operative lanyard when we went to the last day at Lancaster Board of Elections to talk to people that were voting in person there. Democrats had this guy with this weird lanyard that said poll watcher, trying to make him look official. I'm not really sure what they're doing there, but they're there. They're having their presence. Well, I met and was nice to the Democrat guy wearing the thing when I first got there, and he was just like sitting back on a chair observing stuff. So when people would come up and accuse me, I would call on him, poll watcher, hey! And he's an honest guy, and he would always have my back with everything. So it was like, whatever they would try to do, it was kind of wearing thin. Well, that guy left because he didn't like all what was going on there. Yeah. And Nikki came to the poll, and she called in some guy where turns out he doesn't even live in Lancaster County. So he's like a bigger guy wearing a Navy veteran hat with his chest puffed out, being a real dick. Like, I'm usually kind of nice to anybody. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, we're here together. I'll talk to you or something. Yeah. And first interaction, I tried to talk to him. He was the only time he looked at me, pointing at me, said, "I'm not here to talk to you." You know what I mean? Yeah. I was like, all right then. Yeah, I'm not here to talk to you either, though. I guess you're not a voter. So carry on with whatever it is you're doing. Well, this started at 7:30. Now it's like 4 p.m. in the afternoon. That's 9 hours into the day, where I've had them coming at me with everything they could to try to get me out of there because I'm winning over their voters. Well, I mentioned to you before, I was posting some things on TikTok about their supposed nonpartisan organization that was there with Democrats handing out Democrat slate sheets underneath their tent. I went right up to them on my TikTok and I was like, I thought you guys were supposed to be nonpartisan. What are you doing here? So I pulled out my camera and I took a picture of the two Democrat guys, the one that Nikki called in, and the other guy, his name is Eric. I think he might actually live there. And he was just trying to hand out slate cards to the people. But nobody really wanted to talk to him. He's kind of a jackass type of guy. So I want to take his picture to post on social media and be like, here's one of these people trying to thwart democracy by getting me tossed from this. And when I took his picture, the other guy screamed at me, pointed his finger, and said that he was going to have me arrested and removed for taking pictures at the polls. And he said it with such conviction that I believed him. Even though I had been there using my camera and taking pictures for 9 hours. I saw on social media later, that same guy posed for a picture with Nikki in front of the door. I always would make sure I didn't have voters' faces in and I wasn't with my camera anywhere near the door, just out of respect to voters who didn't want to be involved in that. But this guy's posing for a picture with his candidate at the door. Literally there's a picture of the entryway door there, and he's trying to tell me that he's going to have me arrested and removed for me using my camera on him. And, I was worried about it for a little while. They called the constable in, and I'm asking the other guy that was there that knows the rules. I was like, am I not allowed to take pictures? He's like, dude, there's cameras everywhere here. Why would you not be allowed to take a picture? I'm like, yeah, I've been taking pictures all day. Why can't I take a picture? So the constable came in, and he had a call into him. So he said, what's this about you accusing him of doing this? And right away, the two Democrat guys, no, he wasn't doing that. So that flipped me on them of well, then what are you doing here? it's pretty obvious you're calling in the constable to try to lie on me to get me removed from electioneering here,
Right.
doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Now, the guy that knows the rules that was there, and he was like filming those guys as they did that. And the constable pretty quickly saw what was going on and said, if you don't like him doing what he's doing there, you can move away from him. But he's allowed to do that. You need to leave him alone and quit wasting everybody's time here trying to make up a story to get him removed. And I even saw later, like, Nikki posted on social media about how the guy was such a saint for putting up for this stuff at F&M. And I'm like, you drove from a neighboring county to come and try to thwart our democracy. In bizarro world, sure, I guess she thinks you're a saint. But, yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, the rules don't apply to some people, and narrative is foremost in some people's eyes. I don't know. It's disappointing, but...
I would just like to make sure that they don't do it to other people in the future, because if I didn't have the guy there with me that knew the rules to kind of back me up about stuff, they certainly would have chased me off. Like, I was scared I was going to be arrested and removed in the moment of, like, he did it well to me, where he screamed at me and pointed and told me that's what was going to happen. And I just, like, believed him. I'm like, oh, no. I was like, they caught me, and now I'm out of here.
That's
but,
wild.
It took 5 or 10 minutes of thinking about it and being like, why is that going to get me arrested and removed? Though? I was like, we were taking pictures here all day. It is strange.
Well, we appreciate that you ran for office, and sounds like it was an interesting experience.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, good.
I appreciate your help.
Yeah, no problem.
It's nice getting to meet you guys through all this and make some good friends.
Yeah. It was a good time.
Did you have any questions for us before we're going to wrap up on one last topic?
Yeah, so I was saying, I think like there's a lot of change afoot, and as a guy who's never really been a label guy, we're all Republican committeemen. So through this, if someone asks you in a short like tweet type thing, what makes you a Republican at this point in age?
What makes me a Republican? I mean, I believe in policies that are constitutional and America first. America first more with the foreign policy stuff. I'm hoping that we get out of these stupid wars that don't benefit us at all. That's my main thing for America first. And constitutional, I mean, we have a document that was written by brilliant people, and the more you follow it, the more I think a true Republican you are. That's my short answer. How about you, Josh? He's stumped.
Trying to get the short answer is the part of stumping.
You just don't like being short-winded.
I have no allegiance or loyalty to the party itself. I'm a libertarian at heart. I teach my kids the non-aggression principle. I'm a libertarian. The question that every libertarian has now, though, is the party salvageable, valid, and worth your time? To me, that's no.
Libertarian Party.
Libertarian Party is not worth it. So I am embarking on, what Ron Paul did, what Rand Paul has done, what the Tea Party has done, what Thomas Massey has done.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not. I have no loyalty to this party at all. I have no loyalty to the R. I have no loyalty to what its platform is, because their platform can change at any given time. What I'm looking for impact. So what makes me a Republican is that this is the place where they at least want to pretend that they believe in the Constitution wholeheartedly, even when they fall short of it often. So, if I have to, be engaged, I'm going to be engaged in the party that at least talks the talk, even when they don't always walk the walk. So, I'm always going to be a libertarian. I mean, I'm always going to, realize that, I'm party homeless. But, I'm just trying to fight the good fight, and right now, the people in the Republican Party and the America First guys and the liberty-minded Republicans are there.
Really a big presence at this point, too.
I hope it stays there for a long time.
Yeah, this is a pivotal time now with the Trump administration coming in. It could go really badly or it could go great.
I'm optimistic. One thing I came out of all this was optimism.
Absolutely.
People said, with my experience, what was your takeaway? And I'm like, well, especially with as many Republicans as I got to meet, one thing I saw way different with the Democrats. So a lot of people, I think, in politics are kind of almost, they find one party that they're anti brings them home, that they're against one party. And I've dealt with both parties my whole life. You know, there's different aspects of both parties. As a guy who doesn't like marijuana prohibition, I've struggled with the Republican Party, because if we're supposed to be about limited government and low taxes, how can we also be the party that in Pennsylvania spends $5 billion on state prisons and state police?
That's a fair point.
And we arrest people for having a flowering plant. It's just, it's kind of a strange thing. But I think there's a lot in the air of a redefinition of what the parties mean to people. As you see on social media,
Yeah.
it's like that's the kind of question people are asking of, like, well, what does it even mean to be a Republican now moving forward?
Right. I want to build on the optimism thing, because that reminds me of that Cenk Uygur. Uygur, sorry. I always butcher
The
his
Young
name.
Turks.
Yes,
He's
that's
a
Cenk
founder
guy.
of the Young Turks.
He had this great. I'm going to pull my phone here for a second. So Cenk had this tweet. It was about. It was at the end of November after the election. He said, "I've been trying to figure out why I'm more optimistic now than I was before the election. Even though I was so against the guy who won, I now know. I know now. MAGA is not my mortal enemy, and neither is the extreme left. My mortal enemy is the establishment, and they have been defeated." I was really encouraged to hear that from Cenk, because he's a pretty far left guy, and he's bridging the divide a little bit there. We have a common enemy, and it's not MAGA. Thank you for waking up to your own TDS.
Well, yeah, Cenk. So Cenk is the Alex Jones of the left. Okay, they actually even like act the same way. So for him to say that, like, you could never imagine Alex Jones saying that the Democrats aren't satanic. You know, that's like his favorite thing to say. So for him to say all that, and for him to go on Tim Pool and PBD podcast and going out and like basically saying, "Hey, I've lost. I'm here. Let's unify." Like the far left, the far right, the populist left, the populist right. Let's unify. So, and he's right. He said on the Tim Pool podcast, which I'm a huge fan of, he said, with the populist right and the populist left coming together, the establishment just doesn't have enough people to throw at us. And he's right. Because the populist left and the populist right are both anti-war. They're anti crazy taxes. I mean, it is true that the populist left wants Medicare, Medicaid for all, but the populist right also would rather spend money on Medicare, Medicaid for all if we weren't off blowing up the Middle East for Israel.
Yep.
So it's like, or being involved in Ukraine and Russia. Like, many populist right are like, if we're gonna spend trillions of dollars and billions of dollars, let's not spend it on nation building or policing the world. At least let's spend it for the homeless. At least spend it for health care. So like, that's the interesting thing for the populist right. The populist right are now kind of like embracing, you know, healthcare as like as something that the government should embark on rather than wars. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but a lot of populist right are saying that.
Yeah, that's really encouraging.
Yeah. I think at the beginning of Ukraine, they're like $60 billion would solve homeless in America for a 2-year stint. A lot of right-wing people were saying, I'd rather see that $60 billion go to ending homelessness for 2 years than going to Ukraine.
Sounds a little antithetical of what you want out of your own government, though. As
Yeah,
it's like the frog
yes.
in the pot. They turn
Yeah.
it up a little bit and you say, we're
Yeah.
going to tax and spend it anyways. At least put it to these reasons rather than those.
Right. But it's like the system we're in right now. We're talking about how state legislators feel a need to bring home money to their district. It's like the game they're in. You know, you either stand principled and you don't bring any money to your district, or you play the game and you bring home money to your district. You know, it's just the game we're in. But I have noticed a lot of populist right say that. You know,
We're part of the populist right, right? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, if you had to spend $200 billion on Ukraine, I'd rather see $200 billion of tax money at least be spent on Americans. I'd rather not
Absolutely.
be spent at all.
Right.
I'd rather not be spent at all, but I'll take it, you know. Just like how if I had to choose between tariffs or income tax, I'd rather have tariffs than income tax.
Yeah, I have a friend on Facebook. He's more of a libertarian left guy, but he's also anti-war. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but something about how we can come together, the left and the right, about opposing wars, and we'll figure out how to split our peace dividend later.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
That's
it's
really
good.
good.
Yeah,
That's very good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The populist left and right, if they came together, they're mostly all young. You have the young left, the young right. We're populist. I'm 29 years old. You guys are a little older. But, like, we're the populist. I'm a populist right, like you said. And then there's a ton of populist left that are all young. You know, the liberals are pretty young, a pretty young group. So we just have to, like, wait out the old neocons, and eventually these ideas will be even more mainstream. You know,
Right.
It's just going to take a few more years.
Yeah, we need to defeat neoconservative and neoliberalism.
Yes.
And this is the time is now. The fight is real.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think this is a good wrap up for the show. Again, Eric, thanks for coming on the show and
Thanks for having me.
Covering all these great topics. And Josh, as usual, thanks for co-hosting with me.
It's been a pleasure.
All right, and thank you everyone out there listening. Let's keep it going. Please support us. Again, we're here for truth and America first. God bless Lancaster. All right, care guys.
Yeah.
If you would like to be a guest on Lancast or contact us for any reason, send an email to lancastamerica1st@gmail.com. That's Lancast with 2 C's, America1st@gmail.com. Thank you.